The other day, I was making a list that I guess is what you would call a glow up list. And I feel like I've been making glow up lists my entire life. And I know I have had a glow up because I used to be a very overweight girl who was so insanely unhappy that she had to hit rock bottom to finally change her lifestyle. And I'm so happy that I did, and I'm so happy that I've changed. But the amount of lists that I have that are just get your eyebrows done, maybe get them microbladed. Go get a facial here. Then when you can afford it, get it here. Get micro needling. Get an appointment to see when you need to start maybe doing Botox and filler. Should you get your lips done? What about lip blush? What about permanent makeup so that you can be more high maintenance to be low maintenance? Do I have cortisol face like they talk about on TikTok? Should I do Pilates? Should I do weightlifting? Can I do both? Does it make sense to do both? Will this make me bulky? Essentially, will this make me attractive to other people? Will this finally make me such a perfect version that everybody loves me and that I feel so pretty every single day because people keep telling me that I finally feel good enough? Because I don't have any other answer left that could be the reason for wanting to do this. Today's episode is going to be a little bit, well, it's definitely not impulsive because I have been wanting to talk about this for at least about a month now, but for some reason I couldn't really get down on paper what exactly I wanted to say. So if you follow my channel, you know that I normally do one more normal video a week and then I'll do one podcast episode. So you can also find everything from this episode on Spotify. You know, I have really just had one of those days where so far it has just been a little overwhelming. You know, when you have those days where you're like, from the moment you wake up, something is going on. And it seems just like for the past couple of days or even weeks, things have just been snowballing in a more negative direction a little bit, where it feels like I almost have no choice but to get super frustrated, which obviously isn't ideal. So right now I have some snacks and I have my instant black coffee because my Nespresso machine is broken and has been broken for a bit. And it's just one of those little things that, like, I have many little annoyances right now, and I'm trying to figure out what the universe is trying to tell me by so many things just seemingly not wanting to solve themselves in my life right now. So I can't say I'm loving drinking instant coffee, and I might be until they fix my coffee maker, and that could be another couple of weeks. So thank God I've switched a lot to matcha because those are still delicious. Sometimes I think surrendering completely can be the best thing that you can do because you can just be so much in your head. And I've talked about this on the channel because it's, you know, my podcast and my channel in general, I can't escape the fact that I'm very spiritual, and that's going to be very clear on my channel. I think so many things happen for a reason, and in my life, it almost seems to happen quicker in the external world when I'm feeling a certain way. And thank God that can be in a good way as well, but it can definitely also be in a negative way. It's almost as if I already know deep down what the problem is, and that is usually stagnation, a lack of action. It's overthinking, and it's just not doing the right things that you know you need to do. And so you then tell yourself, well, I could just do this, or I could wait until tomorrow, or I'll figure it out. And then you go into distraction, you go into coping, you go into self-soothing mechanisms that aren't good for you. And that's definitely a huge part of what I talk about on this channel, because the reason why I even wanted to do this podcast was to essentially grow myself as well, to show that I'm doing that inner work, because I don't want to wait until I'm fully there, where whatever that means. I want to be able to actually grow while I'm living and see myself doing that. And I think when you want change in your life and when you're doing something, you'll start to see very quickly when you're doing something that isn't good for you. And for me, it's just been a little bad lately where, sure, I'm still keeping up and I'm still doing things and I'm busy, but I'm just not fully in that right space that I know I want to be in. And that's super frustrating because you start to look at yourself like, what is it that's in my way? What is it that's my problem? Why is it that I keep self-sabotaging. Why is it that I do all of these things? And I do think that a lot of us know on a deeper level why we do these things. Like, we know about survival brain. We know that we're just trying to technically keep ourselves safe. Even if the things we're doing isn't as good for us as good change would be, we're still doing it. So all of this little preamble was also to say, if you know anything about astrology, I personally have my North Node in Scorpio in the 6th house, which essentially means that you are supposed to kind of be a phoenix rising throughout life. You should not be the same constantly. You should always be growing, and you should be changing, and you should be changing hardcore, because that's essentially what a phoenix rising is. And I think I have had moments like that before in my life, maybe twice already. And the 6th house is essentially all about your habits, your routines, your very daily mundane life. And it's also been the times in my life where I've really changed drastically, and I've done things that are a little drastic and intense, that I've seen that I've been the happiest. But of course, when you have a North Node, you also have a South Node, which means you go into your old self, or if you believe in it, your old past lives, where you're very comfortable, which for me is all about working hard, but also being very much in my own space and being very spiritual to the point where it's not really useful in any way. So you could say me doing this is a very practical way for me to get all of the stuff that's inside of me out. But things like doing, if you know, the 75 hard challenge, it's always so transformative for me. And I have many people in my lives who would never ever do it. And that's fine. I've learned that it really works for me. And I think I need to do stuff like that consistently throughout my life. And that's also why not my next video, but a video next week, I already know that I have to make, will be about if you've ever felt like you need a real life change, which really goes into what I want to talk about today as well. And not just a quick fix or a glow up, but you want a real life change and you really want to face yourself, then trust me, I feel the same way. And I don't want to downplay myself, because I was sitting the other day thinking about how far I've come in my life and things I've done and things I'm doing and places I've gone to, things I've achieved, ways that I am now, things that I would do that feel natural to me, or that I would have thought a year ago or many years ago I would have never been able to do. So in that sense, I need to be better at really tracking my progress and being proud, because otherwise you're just going to go through life feeling like nothing is ever enough. And I think that's important to really say before this next video, and maybe I need to make that clear as well. One thing I've really seen so many people be lost in is this phase of let me learn, let me be motivated, let me do very, very little because it makes me feel better. I think it can get you to a point where you feel an instant little tinge of motivation and dopamine, and then you don't actually do much. And in the video, I will go way more in depth, because that's not really what this is about, but trust me, I've seen that in my own life. And I think the problem becomes when I start to get scared because it gets real, but then I also lose sight of what is it really that I'm looking for. And that's what I'm going to try to convey in this next video, that if you want change, you need to get really clear on what is aligned soul change for you, and not just what is a glow up, a physical thing. So with all of that said, I'm going to have a piece of dark chocolate now, because dark chocolate is actually good for you, I've heard. It's really not that weird, even if you're close to 30 as me. When you look at Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, that you see someone pretty and you think, if only I could look exactly like that, or if only I could look perfect, things would be so perfect. And don't get me wrong, I literally have a series going on right now I'm calling the Best Self series. I really want to become my best self and the best version of me, but it gets to a point where you just keep postponing your entire life. You're never going to find out who you really are, because you're always trying to become something or someone else. And I think that a major thing that it kind of just sparked back up for me, because it has been a very consistent thing in my life where I just feel like I'm always trying to be pretty. I used to not be able to go to the grocery store without makeup. That was very young. I would be so embarrassed if I saw someone and I wasn't wearing makeup. And I have this folder of people where I feel like, oh, I love this about her. I love this about her. How can I kind of take those things and implement them in my life? But it's always to do with the physical. And that's obviously not ideal. And it's just so inherently stupid to compare yourself to other people, even though it's probably the most natural thing to do now, just because of the way that society works and the way that everything is kind of set up. And I definitely feel bad for girls who are like teenagers now, because you've essentially like grown up with TikTok and Instagram. And it's just so hard to always see someone new, someone prettier, someone who has something that you don't, and then suddenly that's what you want. Or you hear about a new way to be prettier or a new way to lose weight. The losing weight thing has been forever there, right? And as someone who used to be a very overweight teenager, I definitely felt that pressure. But when will it be enough? How much will I have to change about myself before I just feel pretty? And not just once in a while pretty, but just overall secure within myself. Because the truth is, I've always had this feeling of I don't want to be just pretty. I want to do something amazing. My favorite compliment is when people say that they love my energy. When they see me, when I do something, that they see my passion, or they love my kindness or my amazing energy. But it really is so hard to not compare yourself to everyone else. And I think, for example, when I go to a gym class, which I do quite often, for some reason, if I see someone who is more of the opposite of me, let's say blonde, every time I'll think, if only I were blonde. And that could be very different for you if you're a blonde and you think, I really wish I were a brunette. But I actually dyed my hair blonde once, and it was awful because that does not suit me and my brown hazel eyes. It just does not. But it's so funny how all the years I've been alive that I can remember, I've just always had this feeling like when I feel this kind of pretty, then everything will be perfect. And it's so ridiculous because you can see supermodels who don't feel pretty enough, who don't feel good enough, who get cheated on, who don't know what they're doing in life, obviously. And you can know all of these things so logically, and yet it just feels like it doesn't sink in fully. And I'm so sick and tired of leaving a place, writing down a note to myself, something I have to do to be prettier the next time. But you can just spend so much time doing all of these things and writing all of these lists, and then for some reason that new dress or that new product just never does the trick. And I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want to be the girl who gets older and just then decides to become that crazy looking woman who keeps getting Botox and filler. No, thank you. I really want to embrace aging as best as I can while still being as pretty, but also being graceful. And I do think for me personally, as far as I've come, I still have a lot of inner work to do for that to happen. I feel like even though I'm turning 30 next year, I still feel like I'm in this weird place where I'm trying to find myself fully. And I keep waiting for this day where I wake up and I can attract all of these great things into my life because of how secure I feel within myself, because of how perfect I feel. And I know that there's no such thing as perfect, but it's just so tiring to always look for it. And it feels like you're not going to escape it because the world is set up that way. And I definitely see people who seem to be way more calm and stable within themselves and confident, where you just think, how the hell does that happen? But then you also think it makes sense for them because look at them, right? And I have people who've come up to me saying, well, that must be easy because you're pretty. And I'm not going to lie, even if they call me something negative, but they call me pretty, I'd be like, thank you. But then you also think, if only you knew how often I feel not pretty at all, You'd be shocked. And I think that's also why we really need to talk about love and attachment styles at some point on this channel, because it does not help when you don't do the inner work, that when you start dating, you start to find all of these people who reflect all your insecurities back to you. And I would never make a video talking about this if I hadn't done so much reflection on it. And I definitely feel like I have some perspective and some ideas to share. And if you resonate with that energy, some things for you to think about. And that is, if I take my example, some of the girls that I think are so pretty, what is it with them that triggers me? What is it within them that I also actually might see in myself? For example, I keep complimenting certain girls on their energy. I get complimented on my energy all the time. What good is it gonna do for me to compare myself? In what way am I ever going to become the best version of myself if I just try to be a lesser version of someone else? What point is there in me being here just to try to be someone else? In fact, I think one thing that I've noticed in myself that I do see a lot of people out in the world lacking is the kind of depth that I have. And I think I've actually resented that in myself in some ways, because I think it can both make you more introverted and it can make you a little more sensitive, but it can also make other people really feel seen and heard. And I think, for example, me wanting to be more in the fitness space, I start to then think about the fact that I used to be the overweight girl, when really that story is actually what sets me apart. My experience, my own experience, my own past, the fact that I've lived a completely different life for so many years since then is what sets me apart. Because I've noticed that these girls that I also admire are also way more, I want to say a little more ditzy and they're so all over the place that they will meet someone, and I've seen this, and then pretend like, oh my God, they're my best friend. And then 2 days later, they completely forgot their name. And then I just think, well, that's not what I want for myself. What is it when I see someone really pretty, fit, someone who is living more like the influencer lifestyle, which makes sense. Who doesn't want to just be pretty and be on a boat and just get free trips, right? But I also know deep down that would be so miserable for me. I'm not saying, listen, I want to go on a great trip. Sure, book it right now. But if I don't feel like I have a sense of purpose, that I'm not really getting out the things that are within me, and I feel like I'm doing something positive and something that really makes sense on a deeper level, I'm never going to be happy. I'm never going to be fulfilled. Happy is probably a bad word, but I'm never going to be fulfilled. And I know all of these things, but I also know that I need to do some serious work to really get that more ingrained within me. And also, of course, time, experience, and age does wonders. Like my mom, I think, said that it wasn't until fully into her 40s and her 50s that she really started loving life a lot more, because you really start to not give a shit in the same way. And my mom is still pretty vain in a way, but she's also very like naturally beautiful still, meaning she, for all of her life, has taken very good care of herself and her skin, and still spends a lot of money on treatments. Like not like plastic surgery, but just like, you know, facials and hair and stuff like that. But my God, if you saw the list I have when it comes to being pretty and glowing up, I just think, isn't it crazy that it bothers me so much and I spend so much mental energy, but then I don't necessarily do that much about it? When I finally decided to lose weight, it was because I hit a rock bottom where I realized I feel like I'm in a body that isn't the one I want, that isn't me, that isn't the person I see in my head. And so I didn't know exactly how to do it, and I knew it was going to be hard. But from that day on, I changed because I could no longer do the same old, same old. And I have so many moments where I think I really want to get better at makeup, or I really want to find my own look. And I have so many saved styles on Pinterest when it comes to clothes. And do not get me wrong, when it comes to being creative with makeup and hair and clothes, I actually love those things. I really do, and I think it can be a creative and a fun thing, and it should be. And it's so much fun to like find your own style, but I think we can also just limit ourselves so much because we're so harsh on ourselves. It's always like, oh, that doesn't fit the way I thought it did. And I used to work in a clothing store, so I've heard so many women who make the worst comments about themselves, where they just leave crying, or they just say, I'm just gonna put a bag over my head for this party instead. And it's so sad, but I think so many of us do that. And I think it's crazy that I have so many saved videos when it comes to makeup, or I have these lists when it comes to if you really want to grow out your hair and you want to learn how to do it in more different ways, here's all the information. Just be disciplined, just get to work. Or get rid of your clothes, get new ones, and like start learning how to put it together in a different way until you feel like you're really finding your style. And I love the idea of that, so why don't I do it? I think it's another way of sabotaging myself, because I might have this innate feeling where nothing is ever going to be good enough. So if I can just keep it in the realm of one day I'll feel it, one day I'll be it, one day I'll be pretty enough, and then I'll definitely do it. And then I'll put the outfits together and I'll think I look amazing. It's almost like avoiding the process, but you're also avoiding living your life because you're always waiting to become this perfect version of yourself first. And I think the solution to that is understanding that you have a choice, that either you can become the best version of yourself, but it will require you facing yourself and facing how you talk to yourself, the way you live, the things you do for yourself. The past couple of weeks, I haven't been living the healthiest or the greatest, and I haven't been in my routine, and I hate it because I love it when I feel like I'm on top of my shit. I love having my routines. I love getting up early. I love going to my workout classes. And it's just too freaking exhausting to always be thinking about how I can look better at the next thing or the next time. It's like dating a guy where you think, I'm going to look so great that the next time he'll fall in love with me. Or breaking up with a guy and thinking, I just need to have the biggest glow up, because it's like, girl, you were already way too pretty for him and he didn't appreciate it then. Your looks won't change the fact that he's an asshole. Yet, we put so much pressure on ourselves. We put so much emphasis on that. And then it goes back to the things I feel in my heart, the things I want to do in life, the things that I love, the depth of me and my soul. That has nothing to do with all of these things I'm focusing on. And again, that doesn't mean that I'm not still going to do things to be pretty, because me being undisciplined and sloppy is not where I want to be at. And I think I also have maybe a more nuanced view of this as someone who was overweight for quite a few years. Then I lost weight, and then you start to get treated very differently by the world. But it's interesting as you're coming into adulthood and you look different because you've lost weight. All of a sudden, I technically still feel just as insecure, or I did back then. While I was losing weight and a while after, I still felt like the fat girl and I still felt insecure. And then I hadn't worked on those things. And then you go into the dating world. And it's really no wonder when I look back at it that I mostly have attracted older, emotionally unavailable men who just mirror back to me all of those things that I've been feeling. Because suddenly I do all these things to be sexy and to be pretty. And I'm attracting all of these men who also reflect that to me, that they think I'm pretty and that they're very attracted to me. But you better believe that most of them have always left me feeling so awful, so anxious, so not good enough, and so incredibly ugly. And isn't that funny? And then you think, I just have to lose weight, I just have to glow up after that experience. But what the hell does glowing up mean then? If it's always a physical thing, and you're never doing that inner work, and you're never getting to that place where you really realize that until you can get really comfortable within that new identity, you're going to sabotage. There's a reason why my weight always fluctuates with 5 to 10 pounds. There's a reason why I'll do 75 hard and then I'll drink a glass of wine daily, or I'll start going out a lot, or I don't date at all, then I date a bunch. Once I start doing better, my old identity, my past self that I'm not really willing to face yet, the part of me that isn't ready to step up into a new version of myself, is fighting so hard that I just start reverting back to old parts of me. And I don't want us to do that anymore. But I also don't believe that me doing all of those things to just be prettier and thinner and all of these things, that's not what's going to fix it. But do not get me wrong. I love to do transformations and change, but I think there's something very fundamental that I've lost sight of. That is that process of me being seen changing, being seen vulnerable, becoming that woman who is secure and confident, who is becoming better, who is finding herself, who's finding her voice, who is finding her purpose out in the world. Instead of always kind of being in the middle of these things and just trying to be good enough and then feeling bad and then being really restrictive and being really hard on herself and then writing a list on how she's going to glow up. And then you look around and you get compliments from men who sexualize you and you just sit there feeling more empty than ever. And it's just a horrible loop to be in. So if you're stuck in a negative loop, I get it, because I think I've found a way to get myself out of that, but then I kind of revert back into it. And I think the only way to explain that is what I just said about identity. It's only because there's a huge part of you that is too scared of becoming better, that doesn't believe in that version of yourself for whatever reason that you're going to have to get into. And I think the younger you are, that you can really stand on business with yourself, the better. When it comes to boundaries with people, with men, or if you date women, with your own standards, essentially, that's what you have to raise. So maybe what we all need to do is look at, what is it that I'm trying to gain from all of this work? Why is it that I'm constantly reverting back to old versions of myself? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? Is it just validation? And then find out who triggers me the most. Who do I want to be the most? And why? What is the best version of myself? Am I really that scared of being seen as her? Am I scared to be seen as different? Because really then look into what sets me apart. It's not about being arrogant, because I kind of felt that when I was doing it with myself. I was like, but I'm so much deeper than them, or I have such great energy, or I care so much about people. That's all true, but that still sounds a little bit like it comes from ego. And I don't know about you, but I just want to be more aligned with my soul, with my purpose. I want to attract in good and right people into my life who's going to help me grow and evolve. And I want to be able to trust that I can stand strong and securely in myself and really understand that this is the one life that I have, as me at least. And I really, really hope that I'm not going to be one of the women who just keeps getting older, and then I look back at a picture from today and then I think, wow, I was so beautiful, or wow, I looked so young, I looked so vibrant, and then realizing that I was just always chasing something that never fully comes because it won't be enough anyways. So with all of that said though, I really hope that you will take something positive from it, because I definitely will be taking it as a serious chance to get real with myself, to do a lot of reflection, and to start realizing, why am I buying what I'm buying? Why am I always feeling not good enough? Who is triggering me? And why am I letting this happen? Who am I following online? Who am I listening to? Who am I doing things for? Who am I dressing for? Right? Because there's no magical moment where it's just going to all make sense for you. You're going to have to seriously do that work on yourself when it comes to self-love. And that does not mean not bettering yourself, because that is what I'm all about. And I do think that a big part of my purpose is to better myself and to inspire other people to better themselves. But we just can't get lost in that waiting room, in that period where we're just there and kind of learning and getting inspired. But then we're missing out on the process, and the process is literally us becoming the best version of ourselves. But what's the goal and what's the end point of that, right? But a video that I'm doing next week is about creating serious change in your life. And it might, when I make it, sound a little counterintuitive to this, but it's coming from someone, if you relate to this, it's coming from someone who is so sick and tired of being in the loop that I just explained to you. So it's really me doing that inner work on myself, for myself, and putting it into actionable steps, because I want to show you guys what that means for me and what I'm doing. I have been so scared before to put in that real change that I want to create and implement, but I think I'm finally at that point like I was with my body back then, where I'm just like, what's the point of living in this space that is like where it feels like I can distract myself for a little bit, but there's no point, because it's like you're haunted by the potential of who you could be. And there's just no way that version of you is just all about being pretty. I say, I don't want to be pretty. I want to be iconic. And there's no way that you trying to be someone else is the way to get there. So take that and do with it what you will. But I really hope that you internalize that as realizing that there is something very special about you. And there are so many things that set you apart. And if anything, if you feel like you have a past and you have pain and you have a version of you that just could never do those things or be those things or look that way, what if you can? What if you start loving yourself more to the point where you're actually doing the good shit, to the point where it becomes your identity? Then there is no going back. There's no reverting, because it's a new identity. So here's to being iconic and not just pretty, because that is a dime a dozen. It's skin deep, and I don't think I want that to be what I bring to people. So I'm gonna work real hard on a glow up list that makes sense for people who want real change in their lives and glow up from the inside out. So I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye guys.